Okay, council members, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the regular council meeting scheduled for tonight, Monday, January 26th, 6 to 8 p.m. with a special agenda item. First up on the agenda, to convene the second public hearing regarding the proposed charter, during which the public hearing of which we will not be taking any action tonight. So I'll just ask before we launch into that if there are any additions or deletions to the agenda. Okay, Kevin, you okay? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Jim, no additions or deletions?
No.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to convene the second public hearing regarding the proposed charter at, what time is it, 6:02 p.m. in the council meeting, council room here in the municipal building, 222 Main Street. And I have a few thoughts about how we might do this. Carrie is going to bring up the document that she was working on for us when we met for the first public hearing and share it to the screen so that you can see it whether you're here in the room or not. And we have a few copies. Did you all find them as you came in the door? That have the comments printed so you can follow along more easily. Okay. In fact, I'd like one. Ann, would you bring one for me, please? It'd be easier than trying to do it on the screen.
So I can, no, you're good. Because I know you're.
So here's what I'm thinking. We took considerable time to go over this at our first public hearing. And tonight what I'd like to do, because we have a lot of work to do on the review of finances and the budget as well, is propose that we simply have Carrie walk us through each section. I'll just have her scroll through and we'll stop at each section. If there are comments that council members would like to make about any thinking you've done since our last meeting, you are welcome to do so. Keeping in mind that we will be together Wednesday night for what I'm really in my own mind seeing as a council working session to try and sort through what we want to do with these. So I'm not thinking we have to make any of these decisions or even lead toward them tonight. Ann and Pam and Kitty were all in the room when we talked about it the first time. So if you have new comments about a particular section, or you have a reconsidered opinion, council members or anybody in the community, that you would like to share, that would be appropriate. But we're not going to take the same comments about the same items again tonight. We're going to assume that we'll be able to work on that Wednesday. And the last thing I want to say, just to set expectations appropriately, is that my expectation about the meeting on Wednesday night is that we will not be primarily focusing on community input. So I'm assuming, council members, that we'll sit around this table, go through it line by line, make decisions, and unless you have a specific question for someone in the community, we'll make decisions and move on, having had considerable opportunity for input. Okay? Any questions about the process? Okay, then Carrie, if you could scroll us down to subchapter 1, Incorporation and Powers of the City, and let's just pause here and ask if anyone has any comments you would like to add to what we've already talked about. If there's something that you said at the last meeting and you feel like it hasn't been captured appropriately in the comments section, you're welcome to share that with us. Council members, you okay moving on? Yep. Okay, let's go on to subchapter 2 on governance, powers and duties of city council. The composition of the city council and the terms of office, the responsibilities of the mayor, commencement of terms, and the election of city council president, vacancies in office, recall provisions, compensation, conflict of interest and prohibitions, council meetings and procedure, appointments, the Harbor Commission, other boards, committees, and task forces. Wow, this is long, isn't it? And obligation to serve as water and sewer commissioners. I'll just give you a few moments of extended time to just make sure as you review the comments you feel like we've got everything we need there. Is that somebody trying to chime in? Jennifer, go ahead. Oh, Jennifer Hopkins, you tried to speak?
Okay, I am trying to speak.
There we go.
My voice isn't here.
We can hear you.
Good. On 201, I made a comment about a dollar cap on a lease and as well as sale. And I know the sale is governed supposedly by state statute, but should there be any conditions apropos of the lease for a length of time in there? Voter approval such as.
You're right,
It doesn't,
Yep, I remember you saying that, and I don't see a note, so
Yeah.
Carrie, you got it?
There is a comment.
yeah, it's just there's no cap on it. So.
Oh, I see.
You could do almost anything. Or limitation.
Yeah, there it is. Comment G9. Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Anything else you see there?
No.
Okay. Pam?
With the lease part, and I had a thought of this the other day,
Uh-huh.
does the city leasing something like the Gateway, for example, come into that? Because there's been an issue about a length of a lease before tying with somebody's funding and other sources, and that applied to MEMSEC and MCM. In the previous charter, there is a limit of a year on leases.
Yeah, Dave, are you listening? Can you hear that? The comment that Pam just made? She's asking whether or not it's common practice or appropriate for us to put a limit on the length of term of a sale or of a lease in particular.
Yeah, so the way we look at this is that at some point, the lease becomes akin to a fee conveyance of property depending on its length. The more it has a term that looks like 20 years plus, the more it is akin to a fee conveyance, and then we look at it then as being more subject to section 1061 and advise clients that it's a good idea to post notice of that lease just like it were a conveyance of property. Otherwise, for shorter terms, we don't really worry about it.
That does not address my point.
You want to make your point one more time?
I can try.
Go ahead.
The issue was, would the city allow a lease of more than a year?
Yes.
Previously, they didn't. But there's nothing that says that that's.
That's right.
changed.
What this implies is that it's under the purview of the council
Right.
to determine.
And do you then want to put a limit, a cap on it, just as Jennifer suggested for other things? Because there were good reasons for it being a year, apparently. Because it's been discussed many times. It was true with the snack bar down there.
Okay.
Dave may have it in front of him, but my recollection from looking at 1061 is that concept didn't even exist when the original charter was drafted. Thus,
The possibility of conveyance, you mean?
well,
Leases
the state statute that provides a uniform procedure for municipalities hadn't even been enacted at the time.
Right, and we've written an opinion that we try to harmonize the two, and we say that council does have the power to lease property for longer than 1 year, because that's inherent in the authority for municipal legislative bodies to do so. There are city leases out there that council has approved that have terms longer than a year. We don't think it's advisable to restrict council's authority in that regard, except that if the lease is a term of sufficiently long time that it begins to look like a fee conveyance of, say, 20 years or so, we recommend that they post notice as if it were a fee conveyance to give voters an opportunity to object to such a long-term obligation.
Thank you. Okay. Noted. Thanks, Pam. Anything else in this section 2?
In section 2,
208.
Yep, 208. We'll get to you in a second, Jennifer. Go ahead, Ian.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
On conflict of interest. Our original charter, the old charter, had a statement in section 28. It said, and it helped us certainly once, it said, no city official shall be directly or indirectly interested in any contract with the city. And there was a point at which Laura Dulgan tried to, while she was still in office, set herself up with a contract that would have her working from a distance, advising us about city manager type stuff. And I believe that stopped her from doing it because she had gotten the contract all ready to go before she left office. And I think that's an important, important concept, and it's no longer in the section on conflicts of interest. And I don't know of anything that in the state statute that really covers it exactly.
Dave, that was going to be my question to you. Do you know of anything in the state statute that would cover the limitation on a city employee?
Of course, we have a new municipal code of ethics. That's 24 VSA section 1991. And the sections that follow that prohibit municipal officials as defined in the statute from getting having a pecuniary interest in any business of the municipality. And that's defined as a conflict of interest under that statute. So, we think existing state law covers a lot of the conflict of interest now that the legislature has adopted that statute in the last year or so.
Thank you. Is somebody in the queue, do we have more than one person trying to speak in the queue? Okay, Jennifer, is this to this issue or do you want to bring up something else?
No, I just want to backtrack and just say that this policy of sale and lease, it's open-ended that the city could sell any piece of property at any time, right, without voter approval? Or do they have to go for voter approval?
Dave?
Under general law, the city posts a notice of conveyance of municipal real estate with the terms and 30 days prior to, at least 30 days prior to any closing. And that notice then gives the voters the right to submit a petition objecting to the conveyance and putting that conveyance to a vote. And that's the practice statewide, and we advise that that be what the city follows going forward.
Would that be the 5%?
Is that, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, correct.
Yes,
5%.
so then we'd need 5% of voters to do that.
So to clarify, if the city decided to sell off Crouchy Beach because they thought they had some fabulous deal, we would have to then petition against that. I'm sorry, that's outrageous.
That's exactly what it means though.
That
Yes.
is outrageous. Yes, I'm glad.
I think it would be an outrage if we were trying to sell Prouty Beach, just for the
Well,
record.
Yes, it would, but you don't know what somebody following you will do.
Yes, understood. I hear your
So to
concern.
have that in our quote new charter that makes that possible is not okay, not in my model of the world anyway. And I would hope that those who are voting are paying attention to that. I mean, we could lose massive assets with something like that.
Thank you.
Massive.
Do you want me to leave a comment?
Yeah, I'd say just go ahead and put the comment in there so we can talk about it on Wednesday night.
Yeah, that's truly a big deal.
Okay. Okay, let's go back to Ann's question before we lose it, which was, I want to just ask the council members, we've heard Ann's concern and Dave's response that maybe it was Pam's, I can't remember now, but anyway, whoever raised the concern, Dave's response was that the statute, there is a statute on the Municipal Code of Ethics, the new policy that I actually do remember reading this year, prohibiting the kind of conflict that we're talking about here. Do you, other questions you want to raise about that before we move on?
I think we should look at the statute that
The state
sounds
statute.
like it covers.
The new Code of Ethics. Yeah, Dave, can you remind us what that new Code of Ethics
I
statute
wrote it
is?
down.
You got it, John?
Yeah, it's 24 VSA 1991. I think everybody should have received a training on that by now. As a member of the council. If not, you should do that. I think that's required by law that you have training in that. But I can't remember the chapter, but it's 24 VSA 1991 and about 5 or 10 sections after that.
Thank you. Yes, just for the record, we all did do that training right away last spring, so, which is why this is actually one of the more familiar parts of the state statute for me. Anything else we want to bring up regarding the section 2 of the charter?
Yes, just who authorizes the purchase of any real estate or personal property?
The voters, if it's not in the current budget. It's covered by the debt statute. We talked about that last time.
I thought we did, but it just seemed that it wasn't straight, it was not there.
Yeah.
So all of the purchases have to be okayed by the...
Well, they're either in the current budget. For instance, as an example, if you put buying a police car in the current budget, it's part of the budget that's approved. If you're going to finance a police car, it's voted as such. But basically anything that requires financing of more than a year under state law has to be approved by the voters.
But what if we could get the whole for $500? Would that require, whose approval would that require?
City Council. City Council has exclusive control over the acquisition of municipal property.
If it were truly $500, I suspect you could make a collection around this table and buy it.
Okay, can I move us on?
Oh, Lori has her.
Oh, go ahead, Lori.
Just a real quick question. I was able to pull up the document that Carrie has on the screen. Section 205, I just want to correct the comment that I made last week. 30 signatures to run for office, and it says in here 25% is a whole lot more, and I think what I meant was 5% is a lot more.
Nice
So
catch.
Yeah.
That is what you meant. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And just to say, I hope that there's some consideration of that amount. I mean, I recognize that 25% is low in some people's minds, but,
25 people.
It will become up, so.
25 people, you mean, is low in some people's minds. Everybody agrees, I think, that 25% is extremely high.
Right. Yeah. But even if we did 50 or 60, but 5% of the voters is a lot, and it could preclude the citizens' actions, I think. So, anyway.
One question I have that's related to all of this, Jim, is when the last time was that the rolls were cleaned, and what's the practice for cleaning the rolls? Because right now you're telling us, I think, that there are well over 3,000 voters on the registration list, right?
Well, every odd year, the Board of Civil Authority goes through and checklist and mark down people they think are not here anymore. But I have to send them a challenge letter, and you can't remove them for 2 years after that.
Yeah, we had that meeting a couple months ago.
Yeah, we do that every odd year.
And every year, those of us on the board or whatever go through this marathon list, cross out names that we know have either died or moved.
Right, I think that's what,
We put them all together, and then when we come back the next year, those names, of course, are still there, and we go through it again and do the same thing.
it's a different conversation, but one that I'm interested in is how do we actually clean up that practice?
It's
So-
state statute governs how you do it.
Yeah.
Yes, but I guess what I'm hearing, what I've heard from in other places, from other people, is that we may not have been totally on our game on cleaning the rolls and following that state practice.
I've got 700 or 800 people challenged on the roll right now.
Really? And they were challenged in the last 2 years, which is why they're still on.
And next year, when the odd year rolls around, if those who are challenged and have not responded before that 2-year period,
Okay,
come on.
that's helpful. That's really helpful to hear. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to, any other questions about this section before we move on? Okay, moving on to subchapter 3, the section on city managers. Did you all get a copy on the way in the door? Okay. So this section includes 301, manager and appointment of hiring, 302, powers of the manager. That's a long section there. 303, the manager, issues around removal and hearing. 304, vacancy in the office of city manager. And that's it. So
302, assuming the sections are renumbered as was suggested, which I think is a good idea, I agree with it. The paragraph that starts with the exception of the positions of city clerk and treasurer who shall be appointed by city council, we just need to add in there, and there's another place where it needs to be added, and I've got it noted, that assistant clerks and treasurers are appointed by the clerk, just defining the chain of command. I'm not sure if we talked about that last time.
right, not only appointed by, but also responsible to.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You may wanna put that in 402 instead of 302.
Will you say more about the rationale for that, Dave?
402 is the appointment of the city clerk and treasurer.
Yeah.
So instead of talking about the assistant clerks and treasurers in the city manager section, you talk about it in the city clerk and treasurer section.
That makes sense.
I was just trying to remove them from manager supervision in 302, but I see your point. I'll play with that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we should, you can say something like, except as otherwise provided herein, the manager has responsibility for all employees.
Carrie, you're doing a great job of juggling both. Are you doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Did somebody else want to speak?
No, somebody was just joining.
Okay, other comments about section 3? Go ahead, Ann. Or Pam, sorry, looking at Pam first.
2 meetings ago, you allowed Jim Johnson, Ann, and myself to be out there with Dominic Cloud. We, of course, had a lot of questions for him. He was fine about that, but one of which was about the city manager, because we had understood, or were led to understand, that one of the reasons for changing the charter had to do with the hiring of the city manager. He had no knowledge of that, and that didn't make sense to him. He also said that the charter of St. Albans, the example that you're all given, was basically created before our charter. So, what was all the drama? He didn't seem to know that. When we said, have you read the description in the proposed charter? He hadn't. And we raised the concerns that it looked as though, based on what he was telling us about what he saw as the relationship between the mayor, the council, and the city manager, and that's not what appears to us in the new charter, that he might want to take another look at that, because it looks as though that city manager can be basically here for life if that's the way they want, because of the powers you have given them in this charter. And that's been pointed out by other people. So I don't know if he came back in and mentioned that to you, but he was certainly involved in that discussion of the three of us. He hadn't quite bargained for when we got here.
I'm sure that's true. I will say that I have said, and that's probably what you're referring to several times in this process, that for me, one of the reasons, the rationales for creating a new charter was because I think it will help us to attract stronger candidates for city manager. I've never implied, I don't think, and I certainly didn't mean to if I did imply it, that I think it's necessary to create this new charter in order to hire a city manager. My point has been all the way along, just to be clear, that we have an opportunity to try and create tight and strong and clear language about what the responsibilities are of each, and that will be helpful in the hiring
They had
process.
certainly got smushed together in the minds of many of us.
Right. So that,
Well, the other thing that's appeared in a couple of the newspaper articles are comments that this draft is based on the St. Albans Charter. The outline on which it's based is actually the Essex Junction City Charter, not the St. Albans Charter. And the St. Albans is one of about 15 or 20 that were read in the process. But the basic outline is we recently adopted Essex Junction City, or Essex, I don't know what they call themselves, charter.
Can I respond to that?
Quickly, and then we're going to move on.
The downside of the Essex Charter is that it's not been tried. It's in its first season. The advantage of having a charter that's been around the block a few times is you know what works and you know what doesn't. It's a brand new charter. We have no clue what the unintended consequences are, and that's scary.
Thank you. Okay, Ann, another point?
Yeah, in general point, and then something, again, more specific. If you don't limit the powers of the city manager, and you've given quite a few of the council powers away to the city manager, if you look at it, like contracts. You guys have always signed on contracts. Now the city manager signs the contract. And while you might say, well, if they sign a contract for $1 million for something that we don't really like and it wasn't in the budget, we could fire them. But what do you do with the person out there for whom the contract has been signed and who expects us to hold up our end of the deal? And it would be much better if ahead of time, and I don't know what I originally suggested a $5,000 limit, but clearly that didn't appeal to anybody, but a $50,000 limit, so that if a contract is worth $50,000, it should come to you, $100,000, it should come to you before it's approved fully, so that you have a sense of where it's going and controlling it before it becomes a done deal. To give the city manager as much unlimited power as you have, I think is wrong. And you've seen it happen with, even under our original limited city manager charter, that a city manager can take it all away unless you have a council, and you can't guarantee that you guys will always be here, a council that can control the situation. So if you don't define limits, as many as you can on the city manager, within reason, you're going to have a problem in my mind.
Thank you. Other comments or questions on section 3? Anybody online want to jump in with anything before we move on? Is that a yes? Oh, hi Mark, go ahead.
Hi, Rick. Is this here? How come the city manager has to be in control of everything in Newport?
Has to be what, Mark? How come the city manager?
Control. Section 302, power of the manager. The manager shall be the chief of admission officer of the city Newport. The manager shall be responsible to the councilors for admission of all city affairs placed in the manager.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification, Mark. The short answer is that what we're defining here is what's called a council manager form of government. And so we're laying out what the responsibilities of the manager are versus what the responsibilities of the council members are. So the manager here is being defined as the administrative, the kind of chief administrative officer of the city who manages the city operations on a day-to-day basis. Other questions? Okay, hearing none, let's go on to section 400. This is the section called City Clerk and Treasurer. We've got the completion of elected term. And then we have 402, the appointment of the City Clerk and City Treasurer, and that's it. And I'll just note that we've made a note of Dave's recommendation that we move that question about lines of responsibility and accountability in the Clerk Treasurer's office to this section 402. Mm-hmm. Are there other comments, council members or anyone in the room who would like to make any other comments about this section? Folks online, any concerns or questions before we move on? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to section 5 on city meetings. 501 is on city meetings and elections. And that's it. That's the whole section there, A, B, and C. Any questions or comments about this section?
Yeah, I have a question, Rick, it's Laurie.
Go ahead.
Letter B, I think it's spoken to in here that it really reflects the 5%. And I think that if hopefully there's changes made to the earlier section, that it will be reflected here as well.
What we talked about last time
Yeah,
was adding to section B the phrase "except as provided in this charter with respect to recall petitions and special elections." Then wherever we end up on those points is covered. Because
Okay,
those are
great.
the two exceptions.
Thank you, John, for the comment.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lori. Other comments or on this section?
Dave.
Oh, Dave, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm out of order. I'm going back to 402C.
Okay.
Really quickly.
Yep.
When we talk in the very end of that about removal from office with notice and hearing if requested, do we want to have a removal standard, a cost standard, or is it at will? I just want to make a note that council might want to consider putting a standard on the removal of the appointed clerk treasurer, or maybe not. But either way, it should be given some thought.
John, do you have an
Sorry for the
opinion? No, that's helpful. Thank you, Dave. John, do you have a thought about that or an opinion?
Let's see.
Rick, isn't that covered under our personnel policy?
That's a good question, Kevin. Once this person is appointed and they're not union, they're not under a negotiated contract, I think yes, the answer is they would be covered by the provisions of the personnel policy. Am I right, Dave?
I think so, because the charter says they're an employee of the city.
Yeah, I thought we touched on that last time.
I think we did touch it. Kevin, if you could mute yourself, we've got sound in the background there.
Performing, but already was talking about how he was going to spend her money.
All right. We can talk about that a little bit more on Wednesday night if you want to.
Yeah, that's fine. I couldn't remember whether we had made a determination that they were an employee and subject to the policy or not. And now that I see we can ignore my comment. So sorry for raising it.
That's all right. Anything else on section 5 on city meetings? Okay, moving on to subchapter 6 on ordinances. We have 601 on adoption of ordinances, and that's it. Ordinances shall be adopted in accordance with state law. Any questions or comments about that section? All right, moving on to subchapter 7, administration. That includes real estate assessor, officers and employee bonds. That's it in that section.
Yeah, I didn't see where there was a note particularly, but I know it came up at least one of the earlier meetings in 701, third line, appointed by the city manager. I'd suggest changing that to city council in terms of the assessor appraisal contract.
Got it.
I had a note that it had come up way back at maybe the first meeting we had when we talked about this, if we hadn't picked up on it.
Okay,
But personally, I think it should be the council.
great, thank you. Any other comments about this section? Okay, subchapter 8, budget process. We have the establishment of the fiscal year, the process in 802 regarding the annual city budget, process in 803 regarding city council action on the budget, 804 budget meetings and appropriate warning, 805 appropriation and transfers, and 806 amount to be raised by taxation. Are there any further comments or questions on this section?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ann.
I have a further comment on the appropriations and transfers, which also deals with deficit spending, really, even though it's not mentioned up there. And we had a section in the old charter, and it really came down on people, and I think that it was good. We never exercised that. You know, we got into trouble last year, or we've been in trouble over several years, but only finally picked it up fully last year. The Section 30D of the old charter says that basically that council shall not sign warrants in excess of current revenues, and basically nor should the treasurer cash any of these warrants. Warrants are like bills that come in, and you guys agree that at the beginning of almost every meeting that you will sign them. But it says that if you sign them and they're in excess of whatever current revenues exist, or the treasurer cashes that it's a violation, and that you're liable to refund for those warrants that you signed in excess of the current revenues. And the what is if you go to the state, what it says about that situation is really very, very forgiving. It says, an action shall not be maintained against a person for money paid out by him or her as an officer of a municipal corporation in accordance with a vote of such corporation, whether or not such vote was valid or not. So as long as you take the vote afterwards, after looking at the warrants, then if you sign them, you're not going to be penalized in any way. I don't know what happens in court generally, but it always looks like in court they're very forgiving of the council who sit in these situations. Obviously, the state statute is very forgiving, but Section 30D is a rude awakening, I think, for people. It exists right now in the old charter. It can be exercised. And, you know, there's a certain value to having it there. And now you sort of all, when we all forgive everybody fully, let's face it, who's going to pay when the contract is too much, you know, and it wasn't in the budget to begin with, and somebody signed for it, and now we're at $1 million, and nobody here is responsible for it, basically. The taxpayer. So
Dave, I just want to ask, in your experience, what does happen when there's malfeasance on the part of the council in signing warrants beyond the capability of the city to pay them?
Well, first of all, that happens all the time now in response to emergencies and other special circumstances. I mean, it's just part of the nature of operating a municipal government. If there are, if there's nefarious intent, that's why there's insurance coverage available and/or bonds. But cities routinely spend in emergency situations more money than they may have, and then are allowed to recoup that after the fact in order to keep the government running, to keep a bridge open, to keep a culvert repaired, to keep a road open. These kind of emergency situations require quick action and quick expenditure, sometimes of large amounts of money. And to think that you should go to jail as a municipal official or trying to keep a road open or repair a culvert or a bridge is ridiculous, in my opinion.
Well,
Okay.
but we're not.
I'm not going to do back and forth. Pam, if you'd like to make a comment, you can.
Yeah, I understand if we're talking about a culvert or a real emergency. If what we're talking about is one department would like a new fancy toy, and we have examples of that, then somehow that does not seem like a legitimate expense to me that the taxpayers should bear the burden of. If we're talking about an emergency, that's one thing, but don't screw us over for a new toy.
Well, just to be clear,
or
there are
equipment.
provisions in place to do the kind of planning that you're talking about. If there's an item that the council or the manager or whoever wants to purchase, it should be on a capital expenditure planning document. That's what strategic planning, capital planning is
And
for.
as you know, it frequently isn't.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm going to move us on. Anything else in the section 800?
Jennifer Hopkins.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Only one thing, that if they overspend, it says report at the next city meeting. Well, that's not council meeting. So ideally it happens at the end of the year, but it could happen on June 29th, and you wouldn't have to report it until March of the following year.
Right.
That's a worthwhile question.
What's
Should we?
the section on that?
You're in 805, about 8 or 10 lines down in letter A.
I think 4 lines down.
So you're
Yeah,
suggesting that it would be next council meeting?
Dave, can you speak to the distinction here between city meeting and council meeting and whether or not, I mean, it does seem to
I
be,
think this comes from the current charter, because I think there's something, if memory serves, there's something in the current charter about calling a city meeting if there's deficit spending. The difference, a city meeting is a meeting of the voters, like town meeting day or a special election, like when we had to replace the mayor a few years ago. The council meeting is not a city meeting.
okay, thank you.
It doesn't say special though.
Right.
Just says city meeting.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be special, it could happen at the annual meeting if that's the next one.
Again, to my point, that could be 9 months.
Yes, or we could simply make it a council meeting where it has to be talked about at the next meeting. I mean, honestly, I'm all for the transparency. So having a conversation about it seems, if we know that we've gotten ourselves into a situation where we're having to spend beyond our immediate cash needs or cash balance, then it seems like we ought to be talking about that.
Lori.
Okay, anything else on section 8?
Lori.
Yeah.
Lori, go ahead.
So I keep reading this over and over again, and I want to go back to my favorite topic, which is paying taxes 4 times a year. And I don't see it in here, and I don't see it on the agenda to have it on the ballot in March. And I'm still unclear as to how we're going to do that.
So my understanding is that it doesn't need to be in the charter. It's a matter that is warned for voter approval. And I happen to know because I spent about 2.5 hours working on it today with Jim and Chip and Dave Rue, that we're going to talk about the 4-time and make a recommendation to council tonight as a part of the warning. So it's on the agenda tonight.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
Yeah, Rick,
Go ahead.
on 801,
Yes, sir.
I think you need to say that the fiscal year begins on July 1st of the calendar year and ends on June 30 of the following calendar year. Because you can't begin on a July and end on a June in the same calendar year.
The next.
Indeed. You got that one, Carrie? Thank you, Chip. Okay? Okay. Subchapter 9, general provisions, and all that is a savings clause, and then 902 severability. Is there anything that folks would like to add about that? Okay, hearing none. I'm aware that Wednesday night is likely to be an exercise in frustration for some of the people in the room. So, to that end, if there's anyone in the room who would like to make final comments in general about the budget, I'm happy to allow 3 minutes to do that, if anybody would like to make any final statements, because you're not going to get to do that on Wednesday night.
On the budget.
I'm sorry, I meant to say charter. I didn't mean to say budget. Budget's on my mind. Anybody like to make any final comments?
I would just make this comment. You're gonna vote on the charter proposal on Wednesday night. And there'll be a motion and a second. And it's always been tradition that if you have that situation, after there's been a
Yes.
motion and a second, we can make comments.
Absolutely, that's the intention. Just to be clear, what I expect to do on Wednesday night is to work as a group of the whole with council. And unless it looks as if the council is divided on any proposed change as we're working on it, I don't intend to stop and do a vote. So we will work through it largely by consensus and make all the changes without taking comment on them. And then when we get to the end and we have a final version of it, Carrie will be here and be keeping up with it so that we actually can see the changes we're making as we go. Then we will invite a motion to approve the charter for voter consideration, and a second. And at that point, any council member will be given an opportunity to speak to the wisdom of going forward. And we'll also create an opportunity for any community residents to do the same within a time limit. Okay, so please count on 3 minutes, not 8 or 10 or whatever, okay? And then we'll bring it back to council for any final consideration before we take the final vote. Okay? Dave, as I've described that, does that all sound appropriate to you? I just want to make sure I'm not setting myself up here.
No, that's fine, because all the changes we're gonna have will be attached to the charter proposal, or notice that these revisions were made will be attached to the end of the January, hold on, let me get the date, 8th charter proposal, and then we'll have a clean version in the voting booth for all to review as they vote on the charter amendment proposal on town meeting day or absentee.
That's exactly my intention, that coming out of that meeting, we would then go through and accept all changes on the track changes function on the computer.
And then we have to underline everything because it's and have the strike all version of the old charter together, because that's what the statute requires to be in the voting booth.
Okay. We'll get your wisdom again on that this week to make sure we do it right. Okay? Any other comments that anybody would like to make before we close the public hearing, the second public hearing?
Two online.
Oh, we got 2 online. Who's up first?
Jennifer Hopkins.
Jennifer Hopkins, go ahead, please.
Just very quickly, I think you guys have done a yeoman's job of racing this through, but I still want to say I feel like you have raced it through, and that I really would prefer to see a little pause to make sure everything's done correctly. So that's just my last 3 cents.
Thank you, Jennifer. And who else wants to speak online?
Lori.
Lori, go ahead.
I'll just say the same. I appreciate the hard work. I appreciate that, that there's been time taken on this. I hope and would be very appreciative that the council would really listen to some of the very specific needs of those of us who are highly invested in this matter but don't sit at the table. And that really goes a long way in a matter of trust, to really listen to the things that we've requested. So.
Thank you, Lori. Anyone else want to speak? Briefly, Ann, because we just took a first comment. Go ahead.
I would agree with what has been just said about the swiftness of this review and decision about changing the charter. And you know, at the beginning, I said that I would like us to call it a citizen council, city manager, and kind of government. And then I began to think, at the rate at which citizens' rights seem to like they're going to be taken away from us, and we'll know once you've made your decisions, and controls are going to be vested in one person, and we've seen what happens when that happens, that maybe I shouldn't have asked for it to be a citizen council, city manager kind of government, because maybe since citizens aren't being recognized in a significant way, that maybe we don't even want to be there. And you can think about that. And I won't withdraw my motion because some other people might have wanted it that way, but I am not clear on it anymore, I'll tell you that much.
Thank you. Okay, any final comments? Okay, with that, we are going to end the second public hearing on the proposed charter. Take a motion to do so. Yeah. Do I have a motion to end to bring the second public hearing to a close?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. The motion carries. Dave, I think we've got what we needed from you tonight, yes? And you'll be able to be with us on Wednesday night as well, is that correct?
Correct. I'll see you on Wednesday at 6.
You're marvelous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, for your help with that. Okay, so we're moving on to the consent agenda. In this consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from the 5th, the 7th, the 13th, and the public hearing on the 21st. And you all have seen all of those minutes. We have the AP warrants from the 7th, the 9th, and the 16th. We have PR warrants in the packet from the 6th and the 20th. And no special permit requests as far as I know.
No.
Okay. So that looks up. Are there any questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
And a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to move us on to the item 5, the review of the balance sheet and year-to-date. I've asked our buddy Chip to be as succinct as possible to allow us to move on to the budget tonight. And you have the reports in your packet that Chip normally reviews and will review for us tonight as well. So Chip, the floor is yours.
And would you be wonderful and share your screen as you go, or do you want me to?
I'll share mine, in that then I can track it
That sounds great.
with what I'm doing to find it.
Oh, you share your screen. Done that so many times.
I feel like I'm doing Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah.
Does it come?
Yep. All right. And then
They skip that one's a little small one.
Yeah, we're gonna try and pin it and make it bigger here. Hold on just a minute, Mark.
Okay, buddy.
Carter's gonna see what you can do on our end here, Chip, too.
Yeah.
So that makes it bigger for us, but I'm afraid it doesn't help those who are watching online. Mark, it hasn't changed anything for you, right?
Hang on, let me try and change it to a window.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Carrie, do you want water? I don't know if it's because we have so many people online, Chip, but could you, like you see in the bottom right corner, the magnifying glass, would you, when you're in Adobe View, zoom in? Do you see what I'm talking about? In the in the application? Yeah. Beautiful.
That's helping.
That's it. Yep. And let me see.
Okay, did that help, Mark? Yeah, I see a thumbs up. Okay, now we'll do the same thing here.
Okay.
Okay? All right, Chip, walk us through it, please.
Yeah, so this is the report I always like to start with because it was the primary reason why we ended up taking out loans and taking the money out of water and sewer. This is the interfund balance report. The key to this report is that it sums to zero. Every fund that has a negative number says I owe money. Every fund that has a positive number says I am owed money. This is all in relationship to the general fund checkbook. And for the first time in years, I think we are looking at the general fund actually holding money on behalf of other funds. About in the middle of the list is our two enterprise funds, water and sewer. And you will see that sewer, again, is in a position where it owes the general fund $162,000. But water is in a position where the general fund is holding $260,000 worth of cash. I can tell you that because we drew down on the bond anticipation note for the East Side Water Tower project, that's the reason that that's in a positive position.
So we just
Otherwise-
Chip, if we just pause there for a second. So Jim, what's the total that we've drawn on that Pasumsic short-term bond
It was
anticipation note?
On the next
$1,950,000,
page.
now it's $2,215,000 or something like that.
$2,215,000?
Is that right, Chip? I don't have it in front of me, but.
It's on the next page, I'll point it out.
Okay, thank you.
I also want to point out that based upon city council authorization, we broke out specific funds, numbered 10 through 16, so that we can track what has been numbers that were lost in spreadsheets in the past. The Reappraisal Act 60 fund has $124,000 in it. The Walmart Reserve Fund has $353,000 left in it. And Records Preservation has $48,000 in it. The cash is held by the general fund checkbook. In the past, you would get that at some point in a spreadsheet, and now you actually have it in your financials, where every time you get this report, you can see how much money is left. Moving on to the next page. The next page is the balance sheet. That top number, $2.858 million, is what's in the general fund checkbook today. I'll remind you that at the end of fiscal year 25, June 30th, we had $151,000 in that account. Subsequent to that time, of course, we borrowed 1.3 to recover the budgeting problem with the state taxes. The sewer fund borrowed $875,000 to cover the obligation that it owed the general fund as of June 30th, 25. And we have billed and collected 2 quarters for water sewer billing. And some people may have paid in advance for the second installment, but we've collected in theory the first installment of taxes that was due November 15th. So from a cash flow standpoint, which we suffered greatly during fiscal year '25, we are in good stead this year based on all the actions we have taken. The highlight number asked about, in quick numbers, I want to go down to the tax anticipation note, which, I gotta roll it up so you can see it. About in the middle of the screen, tax anticipation, line of credit note. We remain at $500,000 borrowed. This was borrowed at the beginning of the year. We actually have cash that can pay it back. Our authorization for the tax anticipation note was $2.8 million, and we hope to not draw on that at all. But we have it as a resource should we run short of cash for some reason. Both Jim and I have looked this over. We don't think we're going to run short of cash by June 30th at all.
Just to be clear about that, we borrowed, so far this year, we actually borrowed, was it 1.8 or 1.9 million so far on that? And then paid a bunch of it back, right? So
maybe 1.3, because when we borrowed the 1.3.
No, I think it was
1.8.
Exactly.
Borrowed the 1.3 and immediately paid down the tax anticipation note.
The 1.3 went to pay down that.
Yes, so just to be clear with council members, this is what got me into trouble last spring. Although we only owe $500,000 on that $2.8 million line of credit, the borrowing power left in that line of credit is just under $1 million. We can't borrow more than that. So I don't think we're going to, knock on something, I don't think we're going to need to borrow any more against it at all, but that money is there if we need it for cash flow this spring.
All right. We have made, second line down, Newport City School District, 2.765 still owed to the school. After the November 15th payment, we paid 50% of what we owed to the school after taxes were collected November 15th. So that's why that number is down to half. That number will be adjusted in March when the final cash flow for education is provided by the Department of Ed. Now, for convenience sake, the funds until we get to Fund 8 for sewer aren't relatively important at the moment, and we want to be expedited in time. So I'm going to roll through them. That being more management, project fund, cemetery, Shirley S. Niles, CDBG, public safety, recreation. Now we're into the ones that count. Sewer fund. We are about, I believe, to reflect meter readings and produce bills. And so we are sitting out there with uncollected almost $189,000. Again, within this fund at the bottom of the assets, $162,000 is owed to the general fund, meaning we have spent more money than we brought in overall in sewer. We knew this was going to be the case, and our recovery rate, based on the changes in the rate structure, should occur before June 30th of 26, because we have raised the rates a second time, and we have yet to bill the third and fourth quarter of the fiscal year with the new rates. And with those new rates, we should end up, if things work out correctly, with a surplus of cash in the general fund checkbook on behalf of sewer. We're still in recovery. And there is, oh, it's in the water fund, all right. So that's the highlight of the sewer fund. Now in the water fund, this is where we're still spending money. Water rates receivable, 134,000 yet to be collected. Our line of credit, third line down under liabilities reads water tower ban bond anticipation note is at 2.213. Our authority is 2.895 or 985. We applied to the bond bank for $2.603 million, less than our total bonding authority. We will be drawing on the bond anticipation note up to that 2.603, so that when we close with the bond bank, there is a direct exchange of one debt to another, which saves a whole lot of IRS reporting requirements. And again, we're still in good shape, and that draw, we've already earned that draw. We are just holding off on it to reduce the amount of interest we have to pay on the bond anticipation note. But that would be happening. I think we're going to find out perhaps by the end of this week whether or not the bond bank has accepted and awarded us the Vermont Bond Bank loan for 2.603 that we applied for.
I'll just throw in there, council members, that we spent considerable time Thursday and Friday following up on lingering questions that they had with the Vermont Bond Bank in anticipation of their taking our request to their board tomorrow. So we answered a whole bunch of questions. Then Chip followed up with one of their representatives on Friday morning with a conversation more than half an hour to help him understand exactly what we were doing and what we've been through. So I think we're in the strongest possible position we could be in at this point for that request for the 25-year note to cover the water tower construction.
Yes. And so the funds beyond that we just added are quite simple funds. I'll give you the example of just one of them. That being right here, the reappraisal fund. The reappraisal fund is funded through $9.50 per parcel provided to the city annually from the state of Vermont to go towards future reappraisals. This money in the past had been brought in to the general fund and identified as reserved money. Now it will be brought into this fund and clearly identifiable as to how much is in that fund. As well, in the current budget, there was $20,000 or $25,000 budgeted to put into the reappraisal fund. The budget you're about to talk about has another $50,000 to put into this reappraisal fund, with the concept that in 2027, you're going to engage in a reappraisal company to do a citywide reappraisal. And how will you pay for that? This fund is how you will pay for that. So you'll have about $200,000 in it by the time you start that process. And it's not in a spreadsheet again. It's just not in a spreadsheet. We've done nothing with highway equipment. However, in next year's budget, the plan is to put funds into this highway equipment budget and make purchases of highway equipment out of this fund. It's all zeros today. We may have leftover equipment money in 26 that we can transfer in here before fiscal year end. We won't know that until nearer fiscal year end. Same condition for this highway paving, which is a specific purpose fund. This can be funded by any unspent paving in the current year, which was what your spreadsheet used to do. And this will actually take an accounting step and show it in the financial statements. Police equipment, same thing. There were budgets for police to buy and replace equipment of all types and natures. And when it's unspent, we can transfer it into this police equipment fund for future purchasing. At some point in time, I think Travis has already indicated that there's a need for the dispatch center to be replaced based on age. And that's gonna be a lot of value to have to come up with. And that is why in our capital planning, the desire is to put money aside annually into the police equipment fund. So when we get to the time for that purchase, it's not in a spreadsheet, it's in the financials. Fire equipment, same thing. The fire department budgets to set money aside for future fire equipment, and that the most major piece of equipment they're talking about is a replacement for the ladder truck. This is the Walmart reserve. This one actually can show a little activity of this year. It started with $386,000 in it. And this year to date, we have spent $32,689.24. And so right now it's got $353,000 remaining in the Walmart fund. This, again, cash is held in the general fund checkbook, and we are tracking both revenue and expense within its own fund. Records preservation, $4 per page of every recording by statute is supposed to be set aside. And so this fund gets $4 per page for every recording, and the money is still held in the general fund checkbook. The auditors in the past have not recorded that $4 per page and held it in retention. I've started to say, no, we're doing that now. It was rolled into fund balance at the end of 25 because that's what the auditors wanted to do with it. And now I've taken it and said, we're not doing that anymore. That's the end of the balance sheets.
I'll just ask if there are any questions about the balance sheets. I don't hear any, Chip, which is music to our ears after what we've been through this year. So go ahead, let's move on to the year-to-date budget actuals.
Okay. To be brief, I suppressed the headers, and we're only doing the general fund because that's your taxation fund, and that seems to be the one of most interest at the moment. We are in good shape for all the revenues in, and again, this is on an accrual basis, so it looks like our property tax revenue line, 97.26%, is the residual of all of the taxes billed, less all of the amounts due to the school. This does include the amount that was billed for appropriations. We have one outstanding number under the other interest income that's $1.3 million against a $7,300 budget. That's because in general government, the borrowing for the fire truck had to be put in there. The borrowing for the deficit recovery is in there. That's why when you look at your total revenues, 7.8 budgeted, 9.4 collected. So if we exceed our expenditures over our revenues based on borrowing, $2 million, we can spend it, apparently. Down into the expenditures. The number we're looking for on the percent of budget would be 58.33%. However, not all expenditures are a straight line with a monthly amount. Some of these are paid for once in July, once in January, or in quarterly installments at the end of the quarter. And so the numbers vary greatly based upon when expenditures have to be paid. Salaries and benefits is the closest you get to straight line. And for government operations, we're at 43.66. And that's primarily because you don't have a city manager you're paying for. Otherwise, as you drop down through public safety, clearly looks over 64.89 on their public safety department. But what we can show you back in the revenue stream for public safety, police, 433, 204 has come in. And the 204 does include amounts that were unbudgeted revenue. That's like Stone Garden and Sharps Grant in areas where the police department works under grants that are unbudgeted revenue, and yet they are paid out as, if you will, a salary, and benefits gets reimbursed and the salary is charged to the regular salary line. Fire department, fire department's at 60, within reason. Public works, the only one outstanding is public work maintenance, 61.48, but everything else is within the realm of paying where it should be in public works. The nicety here is public works is down to 4 subtotal numbers versus being 3 pages long. Recreation program stands out, 76.96. Well, your fiscal year starts when the summer really starts, July 1st. And so most of the program take place through September, some into October. And then pretty much rec programs kind of fade away. So that's why that one's is higher than normal. Rec programs may not pick up again until maybe May, depending upon weather. Just want to make sure you can see it. Debt service. There's the fund one. We budgeted $797,000 for debt service, and we spent over $2 million. Well, we bought that fire truck. What was the other big thing?
In this fund, it was the $1.3 million accumulated deficit borrowing we did.
Yeah, that we didn't expend that money. We borrowed for the fire truck, paid the fire truck $800.
Oh, that's right, we haven't paid anything on the Pasumsic. No, we did pay.
Right. Yes, we paid on that truck one payment to reduce it to 9 years, 10 months.
Yes.
And so that's within those numbers, which was probably 110,000, I think.
Just under that, yep.
So overall, actual revenue to actual expense, we are looking at $3,150,000, $397.30 of an accrual surplus. I say accrual because we haven't collected all our taxes yet.
Right.
But we are in a remarkable position compared to a year ago at this time.
Indeed. Any questions about the summary, the year-to-date budget to actual summary that Chip has just reviewed? Is that a question we had?
Mark.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
It looks good to me, Ron. Yeah, you can do my checkbook.
All right. We'll send Chip your way, Mark. Any other comments or questions?
Is there a place where all these numbers are publicly available?
Sorry.
Sorry. Is there a place where these numbers are publicly available?
Yes.
Okay.
They've been warned as a part of this packet, which you can always find on the website.
Okay.
And I can help you if you have trouble
Just
finding
making sure, because it's hard to see everything. So.
Yeah. There's actually, you have a packet there.
Okay, yeah.
And they're also, we review these monthly, so like, if you, like, in a couple months
But
from
it is-
now, check on.
They are online too?
Yes, like in the city
That-
packet,
that-
that's
that-
over the agenda packet, yeah, so you can check in
about once a month,
Mhm.
we review these with Chip. It hasn't been exactly once a month. We haven't been religious about which day to do it. And every time we review them, the entire summary is printed as a part of the packet that we use to warn the agenda. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
In the interest of time, we did not provide in the package the sewer and water funds.
You,
They
those
were
are,
printed, but they were not put in the package.
great. And those typically are part of like kind of the roughly.
Are part of the
review.
package.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but because we're focused on the tax part.
The next page that I go to is really for the comparative budget.
Okay, so we don't need action, council members, on this. It was just to review where we are to date. So let us
And
know.
I will provide this to PSB, Ellen Stanley, as part of our loan agreements, that the financial statements are provided to the bank.
Thank you. You'll send that to her. We don't have to, Chip?
I will do that.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, then I'm going to move us on to the item number 6, which is review of the general fund proposed budget. And Carrie, I'll invite you to come back up again just in case we need you up here. But I want to make just a few comments because basically what we've got now is a budget that is very close to what we talked about on town meeting day that we held on January 10th. And I want to talk a little bit about there are very few substantive changes that have been made, and I want to highlight the ones that have been made, and then we'll take any questions that folks have. So one change is that Carrie told us all on January 10th that she still had not received final numbers from VLCT, Vermont League of Cities and Towns, regarding what it was going to cost us for our insurance policies. And she was afraid, and had told me repeatedly that she was afraid that we were underestimating. And sure enough, we got them, and we were. And the insurance has raised a cumulative total of almost 50 grand, right? Somewhere around $50,000. So those have now been placed appropriately in the budget that you have before you tonight. That was one change. The second change is that there was extended conversation at the Water and Sewer Task Force meeting on Thursday night last week about the challenge that we have, that we are losing a lot of water to leakage, we think. Based on what we can see in the numbers, we think there's a fair amount that disappears because of leakage around the city. And functionally, it's impossible to figure out where those leaks are without particular equipment. Tom Bernier at our request had gone out looking for companies that might be willing to do that, and honestly couldn't come up with any that could do it in anything like a timely fashion. But he also did some investigation and discovered that you can buy the appropriate equipment, he thinks, he's not done researching it, for between $16,000 and $22,000, and that it's not rocket science. We can train ourselves to use it. And so the Water and Sewer Task Force suggested that we add that item as a $20,000 item to the capital reserve, not capital reserve, the capital planning document. And assume that we would try and buy that equipment in fiscal year 27. We did that. We put it in the capital planning document, and then we added $20,000 to the capital expenditures that you have in the budget before you. There will be no net impact because we offset it by taking $20,000 out of the line item for the water meters. So we had put $25,000 in for water meters originally, and just so that everybody understands how that's working, it was never our intention that $25,000 would buy new water meters. The assumption was that we would do everything possible to buy all the rest of our water meters out of the money from the water tower project. So that $25,000 was placed there a few months back with the expectation that at some point we're going to have to start replacing first generation water meters at about $500 a pop. So the assessment of the Water and Sewer Task Force was that we are not likely to need anything like $25,000 next year. So we lowered that item from 25 to 5,000 and made back the 20 grand that we were asking for the leak detection equipment. So that's the second major item that's a change. The third item that was changed is in depreciation. And I'm going to come back to this in just a moment because Chip can explain it, and I'm not sure that I can. but we've gone around and around and around on the question of how depreciation should be accounted for. And so there are items now for depreciation in the water and sewer budgets. We actually, come to think of it, we won't talk about those until we get to those budgets. But just so you know, we did a lot of messing around with that, trying to get it straight. And then finally, this one does impact this budget. We made some changes to the interfund transfer that we have budgeted. So just to remind everyone, this is a change this year. In the past, we have tried to allocate salaries across the three funds, water fund, sewer fund, and general fund. This year, instead of actually trying to allocate the salaries by a percentage across those funds, we've put all of the salaries for anyone who has more than one fund that they operate in. All of those are in the general fund. And the general fund is planning to bill the water fund and the sewer fund for appropriate amounts of time related to those salaries. So there are still, we can talk about this when we get to water and sewer, there are still 4 full-time employees budgeted in water and sewer, 20% to water, 80% to sewer. That hasn't changed. There are 3 employees in public works, besides Tom Bernier, who have their time allocated between those 3 funds. Tom's salary itself is now fully in the general fund and allocated, I think almost exactly a third, and a third across the 3 funds. And so that would be part of an interfund transfer, right? Is when we, at various times during the year, we will actually do the transfer on the balance sheet and move that money from one fund from the other fund into the general fund. And then it also accounted for a percentage of the city manager salary and the city finance and office administration salary. Do you remember, Carrie? I think we said 15%?
I think it's 12.5%. I want to say 12.5%.
For the city manager?
I think so.
Okay. I might want to
12.5 and 12.5.
Was it 12.5 for on the city manager side?
Recently,
Thank you. I haven't kept it in my head. That hasn't changed. The one that has changed is in the city clerk and treasurer. And in those areas, it's complicated because the first thing is that the current charter does not allow us to charge anything for the clerk treasurer's office to the water fund by charter.
Treasurer can't charge.
Treasurer.
Clerk can.
Fair enough. We have not been in the practice in the last year because it had been done kind of routinely and we were trying to clean up that discrepancy. So in this budget, we do not currently have any transfer for clerk treasurer salaries coming from the water fund to the general fund. We do have 20% of the cost of the clerk treasurer's office salaries, the 3 salaries combined, being attributed to the sewer fund. And our assessment, this is Jim and Robin and Stacy and I, is that it would be reasonable to be charging that 20% and an additional 20% to the water fund if and when it is allowed by charter. So for this budget that we're talking about tonight, it counts on only a transfer of 20% from the sewer fund into the general fund. And I expect that we'll have more conversation about that. I'll allow that in a moment. And I think, Carrie, can you think of any other changes we made? I think those are the only 4 substantive changes. We had a long meeting with the department heads following the meeting on the 10th of January, in which we basically asked the question one more time, is there any other cut that we can make that does not change the level of service that we are providing currently to city residents? And the decision was that there really isn't any other place we can make a cut. There was extended conversation about whether or not we could or should make any other cuts to the capital reserve funds. And after considerable deliberation, our decision was that if we do that, we're actually simply delaying and potentially making it even more difficult to make those reserve commitments later on. That delaying them simply means that we're ignoring the reality that we've got equipment that we're going to have to replace. So I'll take from council first. Any questions, Kevin or any of you at the table have about the changes that we've made to the budget since we met on the 10th.
The financial task force went through the general fund. We subdivided it into different committee members, and they did their own kind of deep dive focus using these numbers, and then plus they also had the sausage making spreadsheet with all of everything so that they could go back from years prior. Questions were raised, but ultimately they were all answered, and so that was recently done last week. So again, reflecting on the most accurate numbers. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
And just remind me, what does this budget change from prior years in terms of acquiring items for cash versus financing? Is it a police cruiser?
Yes. The only substantive change this year is that this includes the entire outlay for a new cruiser next year, as opposed to what we've done in the past, which is to buy them over 3 years and pay the loan.
And we have 3 cruisers, am I right?
No, we have 7 cruisers, and we rotate 1 per year, basically. And the question, we did go and we had a long conversation, Travis and I, about whether or not we could defer that. And what he basically said was, council can do what it feels it needs to do in terms of recommendation. He said the car that needs to be replaced next has been a lemon from the beginning. It's costing them a lot of money in repairs and even more money in time out when the vehicle has to be covered by other vehicles. So his recommendation was that we not choose to put that off this year, because he thinks in the long run it's going to cost, maybe even in the short run, it's likely to cost us more, not less.
So
In the past practice was you always had 3 cars that you were making monthly installment payments on for 3 years. And so to break that trend, you have to buy a car directly and still make payments on 2 cars. And then the following year, you buy a car and you only make payments on 1 car. And that 3rd year, you're done with debt service buying police cars.
So 2 years of a little bit of pain to break the cycle to save a pile of
all the
interest in
debt
the long
service
run.
money. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Unless you want to raise the budget to pay out the other 2 cars.
Which we actually talked about for a moment too, but not very long.
Yeah, not very long.
Any other questions about that before I throw it open to folks in the community? And let me just clarify, when we get this done, the way that we will take action on it is Jim has prepared, with help from Dave Rue today, he'll distribute the language for the warning, and we will take action using exactly that language so that we will be prepared to warn this for the March 3rd meeting. Okay, if I ask for folks in the community? All right. Ann, you want to go first? I'll ask you to keep your comments brief because all of the council members have seen the email that you sent today. Okay?
Then I'll basically summarize the importance of what you're doing with the percentages, especially with regard to Jim's department. We've had a history, which some of you haven't been here for, you haven't been aware, of large percentages going into water and sewer. It probably came in, it started in many ways because it was a float. There were reserve funds there, and if you charged water and sewer for something, you weren't going to have to raise your regular budget. And so we got outlandish figures. For instance, 60% of the city manager's salary was in water and sewer, which I don't think very many people believed was an accurate amount. And then when she hired somebody else to work with her, 45% went into water and sewer. There was never any payments made before about 2021 from the clerk treasurer's office from water and sewer. The general fund paid for everything. And then in 2021, Jim said he needed 10% to cover a shortfall, and that was done. And by the next year, Laura Dolvin had raised it to 23%, and the next year after that to 25%. While many of us at that point were raising issues about her salary and then these salaries going into being paid for by water and sewer, we couldn't get anybody to do a set of timesheets to see if there was any substance to these numbers. When we asked for them, we were blown off. And I will say that Jim's people seemed very satisfied with the 25%, 12.5 and 12.5 they were getting from water and sewer at that time. They didn't complain. They just liked the money coming in for them from water and sewer. So that was the sort of background. And finally, when we got Laura Dolgan out and a new city management, a new mayor, the mayor was at least open to the thought that we should be doing some sort of a deep dive on what actually was being paid by water and sewer in terms of percentages. And when that deep dive was done, and I think at the time, the current mayor was a councilman at that time. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't find my sheet on the exact numbers, but I remember that after Jim's unit did, particularly Jim's unit, did the numbers, I believe the numbers were very close to the 25% that was being charged to water, 12.5 and 12.5 to water and sewer. They came out to about 22% or 23% total. And so that then there was finally some basis for why water and sewer should be paying for Jim's people to be doing the work. So 25% last year, these numbers were produced. 22% or 23% were what came out of the time study, and 25% total was what came out of the, was what they were charging. Fair enough. And then
okay, I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the important part about that is you doubled it out of nowhere. You had numbers based on facts, and now you want to charge a total of, well, you wanted to charge originally 50%, you came down to 40. But there's a big difference between 25% each and 40%, I'm sorry. There's a big difference between 25% charged to both of them, 12.5 and 12.5, and 40, 20 and 20. It's not fair, it's not based on fact. I love the fact that we finally got, after maybe 8 or 9 years of complaining, we finally got them to do timesheets. They finally got us real numbers. And now all of a sudden, and in memos and in the finance committee meeting, I hear people saying, well, we looked inside the city treasurer's office and they seem to be doing a lot of water and sewer bills. Or
I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please.
Okay. Okay. So the bottom line is, it is not fair to do it the way you're doing it. For this year, it costs you just about, you get just about the same amount if you charge the 12.5% that sewer owed and the 6.25% that water actually owes for what the clerk does for the clerk's part in paying the bills. And that would be 18.75% that you would get as opposed to the 20% that you're going to get. And that would give you time next year to do another time study and see if indeed the amount of work that they were doing, which they did the analysis.
And I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please.
Yes. Give us the time to do the time study. If it comes out to 40%, I'm with you. I'm with you, and so are the citizens. But if it comes out to 25% again, Don't do this to us. Don't do this to us. It's not fair.
Thank you for your comments. Council members, I have some comments, but I'll defer to the folks around the table if you'd like to make any comments first. Is there somebody online who wants to speak? Lori, go ahead.
It's a very quick question. Back to the conversation about purchasing the police car, and my apologies if I missed it and all of that. Is there a line item for that for FY27? Is it a capital expenditure? How's that?
Yes, it's in the capital expenditure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Council members, any comments you want to make before I do?
Without knowing more about how that time study was done, it's impossible to be able to judge its credibility from the perspective of someone who wasn't involved in it. I've been involved in time studies of that sort across the street, and I can tell you that a great deal depends on what 2-week period during the year you select, because it's not necessarily even remotely representative of the year as a whole, because of the ebbs and flows of the work.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, John.
So, I mean, yeah, without knowing a lot more about it, it's impossible to know, and so I think from that perspective, whatever we do, at least in my eyes, is going to be arbitrary.
Anybody else?
I've shared this in the financial task force meeting because we did, and you brought it up then and we kind of talked about it, but like my work when I go around and I partner with town clerks is the meeting stops when any time anybody comes in to pay their bill, and it's usually like a 5 to 10 minute thing if they need proof of payment. And those towns that I've worked with, they're much smaller in scale than Newport City, so I don't know, I've seen other examples of town clerks dedicating a lot of time and effort, and again, definitely depends on the time of year, but for that sort of billing, and it's quarterly, so every time it's required, it's ×4 a year, whatever that is, so I'm gonna trust the office below.
I know one staff member spent this last weekend putting in all the meters that had been changed out by staff so that they could prepare to collect readings and do billing by the end of the month. And that is an extra burden because they wouldn't normally be putting in, changing out 150, 200 meters in a billing cycle, except the next 3 or 4 they will be.
So,
Division doesn't do that.
Please don't, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to speak to this too. So I want to say that when Ann raised this question on Friday morning at the council meeting, I went back immediately to Jim and Stacy and Robin on Friday, and I asked initially if they were still comfortable with the 50% number, which Jim and I had talked about. And they took, I don't know, an hour and a half and talked about it and came back and said we would feel more comfortable at 40% overall of our time than we do with 50. It is admittedly a gut instinct question. And the reason it matters that it's a gut instinct question is because while we can easily track time for a paid employee whose time card is being marked a particular way, like out of Tom's office, when they do something in another department, when you're talking about an office administration task, it's an entirely different matter. And so I told them then, and asked Carrie to make these changes, that I trust their instinct and I was willing to stand on it. Then when I received, Ann, your note this morning that raised further concern about it, I wrote to Chad Whitehead and Joe Kasperzak in St. Johnsbury, and I wrote to Dominic Cloud and Sarah Macy, the finance person in St. Albans, and I said, I don't have a lot of experience with this, so I'd just like to know, can you tell me, does this feel to you, this 40% that we're proposing, like it's out of line? And I got responses from Chad, Sarah, and Dominic that I'd just like to share with everyone in the room because I think it's instructive for all of us. Sarah's came in, she was far more detailed than I expected, She said, generally, these are our splits. In the clerk treasurer's office, we do a third each for general fund, water fund, and sewer fund. The clerk's office maintains vital records, land records, manages elections, receives and deposits all payments, and helps most walk-in customers. Elections impact all three funds. For example, the council also serves as the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners, and payments received that are related to all three funds. We have approximately 4,000 tax accounts and 8,000 water sewer accounts in St. Albans. She said planning, zoning, development, assessing, stormwater, and grants, that's all one department. They do a lot, she said, is 4.0 full-time employees, and they are charged 1.6 FTEs to the general fund out of 4, 0.7 to the water fund, 0.7 to the sewer fund, and 1.0 to the stormwater fund. Finance and admin is 5 full-time employees in their shop. General fund accounts for 1.38% of those 5 employees. Water fund, 1.76%. Sewer fund, 1.81%. And stormwater, 0.05%.
I think people, not percent.
These are, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say percentages. Thank you. These are FTEs. So of 5 FTEs, 1.38 of them are on general, 1.76 on water, 1.81 is the formula you're using for sewer, and 0.05 for stormwater. Thank you for the correction. She said 2 people on my team spend large amounts of their time managing water, sewer, billing, and collection. Then she went on to say Public Works is 11 full-time employees, and they are split 20% to the general fund, 40% to the water fund, and 40% to the sewer fund. I'll note that their city is actually smaller than ours, so I think they have a lot smaller highway department than we do. The city manages water and sewer for both the city and most of the town. That means at any given time, our Public Works crew could get called into the town to work on underground water and sewer lines, which is driving the split in this department. So that was her response. Dominic Cloud weighed in and said, I think it's, and basically affirmed what she said, I think it's 1/3 across each of the funds because water and wastewater is such a high-touch business with high administrative costs, which goes to what Carter was saying. So that was from St. Albans. From St. J, it's much shorter. Chad Whitehead wrote back almost immediately. Good morning, Rick. We estimate that 25% of one employee in the clerk treasurer's office is spent on water and sewer. However, that office only accepts payment, as the administrative person who handles water and sewer billing works in our Department of Public Works. If your treasurer's office is handling both billing and receiving payment, your 20% each for water and sewer sounds appropriate. So all I know to do is to try and test our practices against other respected practices in the state that seem like they are roughly correlated to ours. And I'm confident with our choosing to move ahead in this way. I will say that I was on council when this effort was made. It was at a time of extreme turbulence in the city staff. It was right just before the time when the city manager was let go. And I was involved in trying to figure out how to make that process happen, the process of trying to account for time. And my experience of it was that it was relatively easy to track those shared employees, and it was next to impossible to figure out how to actually track what was going on in the treasurer and clerk's office and the city manager's office at that time. For instance, it came back saying that almost no time at all was spent by the city manager, and that's true because almost nothing was being done by the city manager at that time in those departments. So John's point is also well taken, that how you do it, how you frame the question, how careful you intend to try and be, and the timeline on which you try and do it, all really will impact on the final answer you get. And Jim and I talked about this on Friday and agreed we can't imagine trying to figure out how to have that office clock the minutes when they get up and walk away from a task to be distracted by something at the front counter, which most of the time is related to water and sewer billing.
Right.
You want to add anything to any of
The
that?
mayor wanted me to do that downstairs, but I told her, I'm not tracking every phone call and every time we get up to go to the counter, because it's impossible. I can't do it.
Making John's point once again.
Right. We bill 4 times a year, we collect 4 times a year, we have to calculate the meters when they come in, they're read automatically, but Stacy has to calculate all that into the billing. We're answering phone calls every day on water and sewer. We're the first place people call when we got a water and sewer problem. We answer the phone. We can't answer we can answer the billing if it's got to do with Tom's operation We listen to it for 10 minutes and take the heat and say, okay, we'll transfer you to Public Works. And
Thank you, Jim.
that's where we are.
The last thing I want to say about this is I was on the council and I shared the concern for how we were managing those percentages in large measure because I, like most other people, I was making the assumption that the bulk of the deficit experience we were having in water and sewer was related to the misallocation of time. We know a lot more now than we knew a year and a half ago when we were making that assumption. And in fact, it's now clear to me that as an overall percentage of the accumulated deficit that ended up taking place in the sewer fund and the water fund, very little of it was actually attributable to this. I'm not saying that it was always done appropriately under former leadership, but I am saying, you know, all of us know now that there were a lot of other things that were going on in the creation of that deficit that the council should have been paying attention to and wasn't during that time. So while I share the concern that we want to do this as carefully as possible, I don't share the assumption that the only way to do it is to make everybody figure out how to jump through hoops to try and do those kinds of studies at this point. I trust the judgment. In fact, they came back and said, no, we think we estimated a little high. The concern is well made. We think 40% is a reasonable amount to be charging. Any other comments that people want to make about this matter in particular? Okay, then I think what we ought to do now is open it up and just ask if there are any final questions or concerns that council members have about the budget, given all that we've been through the last 2 months to get us to this point. And if not, then we'll ask Jim to distribute the language for the warning and we'll take action on, no, actually, I don't want to do that. If not, we'll move on to water and sewer, review those because they're interrelated, and then we'll come back and take action on the general fund in a moment. But let's just start with any questions or final ideas or thoughts or concerns you all have about the budget before we do that.
Yeah. We've looked at this a lot. I was wondering if you could give a recap on, or a nice high-level overview of why taxes have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Because...
Can you speak up?
Yes. So a high-level overview, because I've heard them a number of times, just being in the office, being in the financial task force meetings, of why taxes have gone up. Because it doesn't feel good to be sitting in this seat and saying, yep, we're going to raise by 11%, I think is the final, maybe a little bit more.
It's right around 11, right?
Right around 11?
So let me speak to that. That's a great question.
I think it would be really helpful to know, like, we did look at this budget and slim it down, and this is truly like keeping our service, maintaining our services, baseline, no, besides like capital planning or capital improvements and trying to make, as we've talked about already in this meeting with purchasing equipment, why did it still go up?
So just to help people understand, last year we approved a total of roughly $5.7 million, $5,700,000 that we would raise taxes on. That was money to be raised in taxes, and that was to cover all of the city expenses that were not covered by other forms of revenue, plus the appropriations that were approved by voters, which ran at about $180,000 last year. This year, comparing, sorry, did you say something, Chip?
220,000.
Appropriations are 280. No, sorry,
appropriations.
Yeah, not
That was
80.
217.
Sorry, what was the appropriations number? Did I get it wrong?
217.
217, thank you. So 217,000 of what we approved last year was that. 5.2 million of it was what we approved last January, and there was an additional 220,000 that we approved in August for the budgeting error that had been made. You add those things together, you get roughly $5.7 million. This year's budget, what's our total, Carrie? 6.3 still is where we ended up? There's a little more.
Yeah,
Chip just scrolled away from it.
Yeah, Chip, what's that final number that we're saying we would be approving for taxation this year, including appropriations?
Including?
Yes, for a moment, including. We'll talk about that in a moment.
So what I rolled down to here is the appropriation. 25's appropriation is down here, 26, 219, 305, and 27, 177, 118.
Okay. And what's the total?
Those are your appropriation numbers.
Yeah, and what's the total that we are saying we would approve tonight, including an estimate on appropriations, which will be, we'll talk about that in a moment. But right now, if the appropriations were where we budgeted them, what would we be raising in taxes this year? Total.
Getting there.
6.157.
Page 115, getting there.
177.
I'm sorry, could somebody repeat that again?
No, because I want to get it from Chip. So we're still getting there. That's what I'm asking. We haven't said it yet.
335,254.64.
6,335,000. So the increase from last year's approval to this year's approval is $630,000, right? $635,000. So of that $635,000, these are rough but close numbers. Roughly, and Chip or Carrie, if you think I'm misstating this, I haven't looked at it since Friday, so please feel free to jump in. Roughly 430,000 of that is money that we approved last August in debt service. So close to 2/3, right around 2/3 of the increase this year is money that we have to spend because we're paying for the accumulated deficits over the last decade. Okay. Then there's another, what was it, 100
I
and...
think that was the total of the debt service and the benefits.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. I've misspoken then. So that 430, I've misspoken, includes two things. It includes the debt service plus areas where we have historically been under budgeting and therefore increasing the deficit. So just to give an example of that, last year we budgeted $180,000 less for police benefits.
115.
I don't know. The numbers, the bottom line is there are a number of categories that Carrie discovered with Chip's help where we had been under budgeting, and that was part of what was creeping the accumulated deficit up. So it's not really an increase, it's just an honest accounting of what we're spending right now that we should have been accounting for honestly in the past. And those two things together make up for about 2/3 of this proposal. Then, out of the last third, there's a 3% across the board salary increase. There's an increase in the city manager line because last year we only budgeted for 6 months of salary and benefits. And we also raised the salary in this budget from $95,000 to $125,000. So there's $30,000 more plus half of the salary and benefits package that we didn't budget last year because we assumed we wouldn't be hiring until at least right now. So those two things alone, the 3% increase in the city manager, make up a significant portion of what's left. The good news in this budget is that healthcare only increased by something under 3%, which was far lower than any of us expected. So, Carter, is there anything else you remember that we want to say as we recap that?
No, that was basically naming kind of debt service is definitely a piece of that.
Yep.
But also the accurate accounting, and this budget actually reflects our expenses. Like even, I was thinking when we were going through the budget to actuals, just naming all of these, like the clean waters, state revolving loan funds, like that was not in.
There was debt service that wasn't even mentioned.
Exactly, so
Right.
it's just our awareness.
So I have on the screen the debt service. And you can see in 25, you budgeted 138,000 and spent 225,000.
Yeah.
And then in 26, you budgeted 270,000. And then look at the lines that were added to get you to 493,000.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got $220,000 of more debt.
Yeah.
And that part of that is debt you already had that had never been budgeted. Just look at the actuals in 25 And you've got numbers in here, interest on a line of credit, 81,000.
The Gardner Park
Nobody
loan.
anticipated that.
Yeah, the Gardner Park loan Carrie's saying too, yeah.
So a big portion of this is recognizing that there were debt payments in the general fund that were never budgeted.
Right.
And that's why one of the first things I talked about was you gotta get a handle on what your debts are. And that's one of the first spreadsheets I said we gotta create, is know what we have and know what we owe. And so, 1/3 of the total added is just to cover obligations.
Thank you, Chip. Lori and Carter, I'm trying to think, I think you're the only two who are here in the room or online tonight from the finance team, but are there any other comments or things you want to lift up that we talked about?
No, I just want to say that, I've had some conversation with people back and forth about why taxes are going up, why we have to pay this stuff, why do we have to pay the mistakes of the past or whatever you want to call them. And I just remind people that it's what we have to do. We can't operate in a deficit. We can't just slough it off. We've exhausted our what can we do questions. And I think at this point, this is the way we have to move forward. And I believe that we're operating under the best way to balance our budget and move forward. We have to. So, it's unfortunate. All of us sitting here are all paying the increase. It's not, not one person or another, but. So.
Thank you, Lori. Carter?
Oh, the cemetery.
Just speak up.
Oh, sorry. The cemetery fund. So I know we had talked, we were thinking about putting in the budget, but then we decided not to because it has its own protected funds. And I remember the cost of mowing was exceeding, and we talked about that in this budget, but I don't remember what we have decided, and I cannot control cemetery right now.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but basically my understanding is that the cemetery fund is making enough money to pay for its own mowing, and that the $23,000 owed to others in there is from somewhere way in the past.
That's from way in the past.
Right. So at some point,
Okay.
we're all just gonna have to suck it up and admit that we're gonna cover that piece and it's done, right? But we haven't tried to do it yet on the balance sheet.
Okay.
But that's why we
great
didn't put
news.
it
Yeah.
put it in, because the fund is in fact paying its own way at the base level.
Okay.
Well, the way that works, the principal amount for any interest, that goes into its own fund, and that's, you can't spend the principal, you can only spend the interest the principal earns.
Yep.
Every year.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then we'll move on to water and then sewer. Any other questions about this, y'all? Okay, we'll come back and take action on this in a few moments. So let's move on to item number 7 on the agenda, the review of the proposed water budget. And I'm really glad that John and Jennifer Hopkins, I think, is still with us, so that if there are questions, you all can help us answer them. I think we've talked about everything. Oh no, I know the one big thing we really need to talk about now is the depreciation. So Chip, I'm hoping that you can, I'll just say, there's been a lot of conversation in the Water and Sewer Task Force about how depreciation should be handled and whether or not it's an appropriate matter for budgeting. And so we did a deep dive into this week, and I've asked Chip to prepare to walk us through exactly how that calculation is made and what the rationale for it is.
Chip, I can put on the screen, I can share just a Google Doc where I put your notes in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on, Chip. We'll put that up so that everyone can see it, and we'll ask you to walk us through it.
Can I move forward?
Absolutely. Just pull a chair up if you want.
Your query on an AI
Here, Ann, sit
ask
here for me.
to try to explain what AI told you to do.
We're going to make it bigger in just a second, too. There we go. Okay, folks online, can you see what we're sharing?
25.
Yes.
Okay, great.
All right, so we're gonna start,
So let's start with the water. That's the one we're looking at first here, okay?
Sewer.
Oh, we're in sewer?
Sewer.
Okay, do sewer.
my note is sewer because that was Fund 8.
Okay, go ahead.
And what you don't get to see at the moment is the actual compared budget report.
Right.
But sewer depreciation got booked in FY '25 for $420,000. And with no new capital purchasing, the depreciation should come in around the same number, because they're the same items with the same depreciation for another year. And so, looking at total budget, with no budget in depreciation, we intentionally are raising money necessary to pay principal payments on debt in the sewer fund. And those are listed in that group, RFO 75, the PSB loan for the 175,000, that was the deficit recovery, RF1 259, RF 150. And when you take what was the actual budgeted, unbudgeted expense booked from 25, and we presume it's going to be level to 420 again, we look at our principal payment that we budget to pay, and we take the difference and book that to depreciation as a budget. The reasoning behind it is, when you get to the end of the year and do all your total accrual accounting, you back off the actual principal payments as expenditures to reduce balance sheet liabilities. But you did in fact raise the money to pay those. And then when you book depreciation, which is also a balance sheet adjustment, you put it in as an expense. And in theory, when you book it to net, that your actuals to budget overall come in to near close to zero. Your actual expenditures against your budget are closer to balanced. And the excess theoretical cash is the budgeted depreciation ends up in your fund balance.
And what happens when it ends up in our fund balance?
It is retained earnings, it's available cash, and it can be used for future purchases. Very similar to saying I'm setting money aside for reserves. And in an enterprise fund, whatever is retained for the purposes of that fund, in this case sewer. So it allows the budget to actual, after all accrual adjustments, to try to come in as the target of the total budget. If you had no debts, but you still had depreciation, then you basically, by the accrual accounting, are going to run a deficit equal to your actual depreciation annually. And if you recall, Rick, you did ask this question a couple different ways through ChatGPT or AI or somehow. And what was the first word it came back with? When you said, do you budget depreciation? First word it came back with.
I don't remember. Go ahead.
It was yes.
Yes, that's true. Yes, each time I tried querying ChatGPT and Gemini, is this appropriate? The first word was yes, and then there was a long-winded explanation that I kept going back to Chip and saying, help me understand this. To be honest, I think I need a year-long accounting course to understand it.
Been doing it 35 years. Fund accounting begins with FUN.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
What the
Chip,
number came in to be in net with the actuals was 89,000 and we had budgeted 90,000.
okay, go ahead.
Sewer depreciation. We know it's going to be actualized at 400,000. But our principal balances will show a budget with no actual when we're done.
Go ahead,
So
Ed.
Chip, I have asked that question that Rick just talked about, and I realized after a while I was getting back an answer that didn't explain things, because sometimes I would get yes and sometimes I would get a no. And then I asked a different question. I asked what was the difference between accrual-based budgeting and cash flow budgeting in an enterprise fund. I did provide everybody at the table with a copy of it. I couldn't get it sooner. It is an AI production, but it does say you can subtract depreciation if you are doing accrual-based budgeting, but you don't deduct depreciation in a cash flow budget. And we do a cash flow budget. And all I hear you talking about with regard to what you're doing now is accrual.
Can you
And I
speak,
think
can
you're
you
talking
speak to
about
that,
an
Chip?
accrual
Okay,
budget,
let's,
not a cash flow.
So, if we were doing cash budgeting, would I budget to pay a liability down, or would I just charge my payment to the liability directly?
Are you asking me?
say more, Chip.
That the intention is to raise enough money in rates in the current year to pay my principal payment. And in order to set the rate, I gotta know how much I'm gonna pay in a principal payment. And at the end of the year, the auditors are gonna say, that's not an expense because you're paying down a liability. So which way do you want it to be? Do I put it in my budget so I know I'm raising my rates, or do I just raise my rates and add in liability payments I'm going to make?
Well, we've always agreed that for capital expenses, that can be put into the budget. And that's a way of accounting
this isn't a
for
capital expense. This is a debt payment.
Yeah.
depreciation is not a debt payment.
No, a debt payment is a debt payment on a loan.
Right. And we
It's not
pay.
a capital expense. You already had the capital expense, and that's because you borrowed money to do it. You borrowed money to do the plant upgrade. You borrowed money to cover your deficit. Whatever the CSO and the drive pump, you borrowed money for. At the time you actually did the project, you didn't have the cash, you borrowed it. You created a fixed asset to depreciate over some amount of time, but you also created a liability to be paid off over an amount of time. And the theory is, as you pay down the liability and you reduce the value of the asset, you are building a cash value to replace that asset at end of life.
So here's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm well aware that many of us still have questions about this. I believe that we have the best advice we can get. I'm going to suggest that we, when we act in a few moments as water and sewer commissioners, approve these budgets, and I am more than happy to invest in an hour of Chip's time and invite some others into that conversation if you think they should be invited, for anybody in the community to have a deeper conversation about this. But I don't think we should try and do it tonight, because I don't think we're gonna get there. And I think we need to make a decision and move ahead.
What's the budgeted amount for water that you intend to use?
Scroll down there, Carrie, when you see the water numbers work the same way. However, in the water numbers, we actually anticipate an additional $160,000 worth of depreciation because we brought the east side water tower online. So though it booked $253,000 in '25, we're anticipating in '27 that it's going to book $413,000 of depreciation. And when you look at that number, 413, subtracting out the water tower, water well, arsenic, it leaves us down to $30,000 to be covered for depreciation. And so the budget number thrown into water was $27,000 to budget for depreciation. That just balances our debt to our depreciation we anticipate. and it's only a budget number, so when we're done and we show no principal payments on the expenditures, we show depreciation is way over budget. Our overall budget to actual for expenditures should come on target.
So can I ask you, those are the numbers you're gonna put into?
Yes, these are the numbers that are in the budget.
The 27,000
And the 90,000 are in this budget currently.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you, Ann.
No, not okay, but.
I understand. Oh, I got you. And I mean it when I say if we would like to invest in Chip's time and have more conversation, we're happy to do that.
But can I ask, is Chip an accountant?
Yeah, Chip's been doing this accounting for public agencies.
No, I was asking, was he an accountant?
Chip,
the way
you wanna
I
just
no
talk about
longer a
your-
lawyer, is he an accountant?
So, depends who you talk to, because I play a doctor on TV, and I'm a broadcast technician by education. I've done computer repair, and I operate a backup. So, I pretty much do whatever is necessary, and I've been doing fund accounting now for 35 years.
So I'm not going to go any further down this track. If you want to have a conversation with the council about whether or not we've hired appropriate help, you're welcome to raise that question.
It wasn't a question either, it was a simple question.
No, it wasn't a simple question. We were about to go further, and I'm saying we're not going to do that tonight. Okay? So I think, council members, the question before us is, do you have any other questions about the water budget? Let's do that one first. Jennifer, are you still on? Is there anything you want to raise?
No, nothing specific.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe I should just jump in and do the water sewer report now.
Sure,
while
that
we're
sounds
doing
great, yes.
budgeting and jump around on the agenda a bit.
Okay.
So, kind of the summary is that we are not recommending a rate adjustment at this time. We really need to see how the third quarter comes in income-wise and see what the meter readings have to say. Because of a substantial increase in the number of meters, we're down to a balance of roughly 450 unmetered properties. So it's getting there. But for the moment anyway, we wanted to see how this next cycle plays out, to see where we stand. We talked about leak detection. That definitely appears to be a very serious and significant issue because of the disparity between the measured volume of water pumped from the wells, which we know to the gallon, and the meter readings and the gallonage going into the sewer plant, which we also know to the gallon. So in any event, we're addressing that. Moving forward, hopefully in the next bill that goes out, there's going to be an information sheet that Patrick Hurley's been working very hard on to develop to try to answer some questions that are frequently asked of the folks downstairs and provide some basic information about the billing and also some of our thoughts going forward. To incentivize meters or the installation of meters down the road, one of the things we're going to be looking at in the next several months are some adjustments in the fixed rates, a three-tiered fixed rate structure. Basically, the first would be a rate for people who have requested a meter and are simply awaiting installation if there's any delay. Based on present turnaround time, there's really not any significant delay, so that may not be a significant point. Then we're looking at coming up with a fixed rate for people who have cooperated in terms of requesting a meter, but once their property is inspected, it's determined that plumbing or structural modifications are required. that are costly enough to make the exercise impractical. And we asked people to think about what the rational economic cutoff point is in terms of how much money people would be required to spend on modifications before you hit impracticality. And then a third fixed rate for the people who are completely uncooperative in terms of not allowing entry to the property, refusal to participate in the program at all. In other words, you can still have a fixed rate, but you're going to pay for the privilege. And all of that is largely in service of the proposition that in order to really have a handle on costs, we need to know how much water is being used and how much is being lost to leaks. And we can't narrow that figure down as closely as we can get it until we have pretty much everybody metered. That's really
Right, so actually, the leak detection equipment is kind of the second act, right?
Right,
The
yeah.
goal is to get, 90% plus of the meters done.
right. And then the idea behind the leak detection equipment is to narrow it down to, is it the pipe on Sias Avenue between Severance Drive and Fernwood Circle that's leaking, or is it the pipe on West Main Street downhill from Bel Air Drive that's leaking, or what? Trying to narrow it down to specific pipe segments. And that in turn would drive the priorities for the capital, water capital budget in terms of what parts of town need attention first. It would make capital planning more accurate in that sense if you know you have areas with leaks. And the issue with leaks is that while some of them are pretty obvious, like the one that was on Bay Street earlier this year, where they bubble up and break the pavement and the water's running across the road, there are other parts of town where there are leaks that are not detectable on the surface because of the soil characteristics in town. Parts of the city are drain extremely well in terms of deep gravel beds, and in those parts of the city, particularly if those adjoin swampy areas, nobody would ever know there's a leak because the water will never surface. Thus the importance of leak detection equipment.
Thank you, John.
So, short bottom line, no change now. In terms of the expense side, this basically is carrying forward the status quo with all the adjustments discussed earlier. We're not, other than the leak detection equipment, we're really not adding anything that we're not already doing.
Did I hear someone trying to chime in on the line, or is that, no? Okay. Questions? Council members, any questions?
I'm quite enthralled about the idea of getting this leak detection equipment. It will just be another tool in the Public Works tool belt to help identify, just as you're saying, and like focus in the area. You can then know which areas are leaking more, because I work with the southern part of our region on small water systems, and that has been like eye-opening. Like some of these small water systems were like 30 to 40 to 50% of their intake was just going right back into the ground. So if we can help identify that, I think it'll be very enlightening. So I'm excited.
Jennifer, go ahead.
I think the only thing is to correct somewhat what John said, is that we really want to use the leak detection sooner as opposed to later, so it will be concurrent with the last of the meters being installed as soon as we get the equipment.
Yeah, I think the caution there, I've talked with Tom about this, we've got limited staff resources.
Right.
And I don't want us to lose focus. None of us want us to lose focus on getting these meters installed. So it's going to be a balancing act, and we'll see how quickly we can get people to sign up to have the final meters installed, because it's not just a question of our staff, it's also a question of how many people, step forward and are forthcoming when it's time to do it. So.
Yeah, as we work through meters, the easy ones are probably the ones that have already been done.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's the water fund. So just to be clear, when we come back to this in a moment, acting as water commissioners, we'll be looking at a total expenditure proposed of $1,227,301, $1,227,000 in expense for the water fund. Sewer fund, I don't think there's anything else that we really need to lift up here, but I'll just ask if there are any questions. This one proposes a total budget, looking for it here, total expenditures of $2,621,787. And again, these numbers have now been pretty carefully vetted by Water and Sewer Task Force. They've gone over it and over it. Any questions about it?
No, thanks to that task force.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
They put in long hours. Any questions in the community about this one?
Just have that last question about, you talked about getting together your warnings. Will there be warnings for the establishment of the two capital reserves, the one in water and the one in sewer?
Not necessarily. I'll double check with Dave Rue, but my understanding is that his interpretation of it is that it's not necessary. So I'll go back to him again. But it doesn't further, I mean, the bottom line from my perspective is, are we managing our bookkeeping in a way that we can see exactly what we're doing, and are we honoring it? And the answer to those questions is clearly yes. So we can talk, and I'm happy to follow up about the specific question you want us to ask, but I think the answer I've gotten back is that it's not necessary.
Okay.
Okay.
It was a safeguard on having the funds be there and having them not removed, as we've been doing for the last 2 years.
Well, for a lot longer than that. We've been stealing it without talking about it for a lot longer than that.
That's right.
That's right. All we did this last year was admit what had been going on.
So if that warning went through, those funds would be protected, at least with a voter decision, before money could be moved elsewhere.
I hear that. So let's talk further about that tomorrow if you want. We can have a conversation, so I make sure I ask the question in the appropriate way. Any other questions about the sewer fund? Okay, then Jim, let's go back now. Now we're on to item 9. And Jim is going to distribute to us the warning that he and Dave have been working on. Yes, thank you, Carrie.
I got one for Carrie. You want one, Carrie?
So, Jim, do you want to say anything about this as you're handing it out to us?
Yeah, all the articles are in there. There is the one in there you'll notice about going to 4 payments.
Which article is that? Can you kind of walk us through it?
That is Article 6. And those will fall on the same dates as water and sewer. Including that's the easiest date to manage this. If you went later in the year, the last payment wouldn't be coming in until June 30, and that's the end of the fiscal year. If you do it early, you can't get them to equal days apart. And also in there is the budget. Article 3 is the budget. It includes the total expense, the untaxed revenue, and what is left to be collected by tax. That's in all the others are just run-of-the-mill.
Okay, so tonight, if I'm understanding it correctly, we're doing. All right, you don't have any charter ones in here? Oh no, you do.
Charter.
So we're not going to take action on the charter tonight. Are there any others among these? Yeah, most of these are the appropriations. Let's review them, shall we? And let's mark them as we go, since council has not had a chance to see these before right now. So Article 1.
Greg, the whole warning should be adopted at a meeting and not sections adopted. So the board can adopt the budgets, but not adopt the warning until they're ready to adopt all of the warning at once.
So we simply adopt the warning Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Yes. Is there anything that would keep us from doing that on Wednesday night? If we warn tomorrow morning that the part of the agenda for Wednesday night is to take action on the final warnings for the March 3rd election. Is there any reason, Jim, that that would be a problem?
As long as you approve, you're gonna approve the budget tonight, as long as you approve the charter tonight, then after that, you approve the warning.
And then we do the whole warning as our last act on Wednesday night. So Carrie, I think that means you and I would have to rewrite the agenda for Wednesday night to do all of the warning together, and then we would post that tomorrow on the website, which would still be more than 24 hours in advance. So I think we're okay on warning that we're gonna do that.
As long as the warning is after the approval of the charter.
Okay, I apologize, everybody. I didn't realize, I thought we were working on just the budget part of it tonight and that we would do the rest later, so.
So the board can adopt the budget and then 2 days from now, adopt the warning for the annual meeting.
Okay, everybody okay with that? Kevin, you're all right with that? All right, then I'm going to accept a motion to adopt the budget as presented for the general fund tonight. Okay, hold on, I'm going to back up for a minute. Here's one other complicating factor. The budget, as we've been talking about it, includes the estimate on the appropriations. And those things are not decided until they're decided. So just so you know, on Wednesday night, when we take action, the way this warning is written,
That does not include the appropriation.
it does not include the appropriations, right? So when we take action on Wednesday night, it will be on the budget as you see it, minus the estimates on the appropriations, which will be warned individually. Make sense?
So the budget we approve tonight should be the budget, the general fund budget, less the appropriations.
Less the appropriations. So we can do that, and we have the language right here in Article 3. Let me just make sure I'm right about this. So Chip, if we invite a motion from Article 3 to approve the fiscal year 2027 budget of $9,341,645.09, $9,341,645.09, of which $3,184,208.45 is non-tax revenue, and $6,157,436.64 of which is to be raised by taxes to cover the general operation and liabilities of the city of Newport, Vermont. That we stop right there, right?
Yep. You adopt the budget based on those numbers, yes.
So we're adopting the budget based on those numbers with the understanding that the appropriations will happen beside them, and that will bring it back up to the number that we've been looking at tonight. Make sense? The $6,335,000 number.
But the rest of the article says is about with appropriation assessment there by law. That means the assessments are going to be budgeted, not budgeted, they're going to be taxed, but they're voted on separately.
Yes, but we're going to actually pass this language for the warning on Wednesday night exactly the way it's written.
Yeah.
All we're doing tonight is approving the budget minus the appropriations portion.
So that 9 million figure does not include the appropriation.
Correct. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are you adopting or approving the budget, or are you proposing this budget to the public to vote on?
Of course, that's what we're doing. We're recommending this budget for the public's consideration, for the voters' consideration. Okay? Any other questions?
And how do you want to reword this?
Yeah, so here we go. Are you ready? I'm going to propose a motion. I would accept a motion that the council approve the fiscal year 2027 budget as presented tonight, minus the appropriations portion. And the numbers to that effect are that we are approving a $9,341,645.09 budget, of which 3 million, sorry?
Expenditure budget.
Expenditure budget, thank you, of which 3,184,208.45 is non-tax revenue, therefore leaving 6,157,436.64 to be raised by taxes. Period. Okay? And then honestly, all we're doing tonight is formalizing that we've been through this process, because we're going to do it again on Wednesday night.
I'll make that
Yeah,
motion.
you're gonna approve the warning on Wednesday night.
Exactly.
It's gonna be exactly what it is.
All right, so I've got a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. I'm going to pause and ask the lawyer at the table if you have any concern about the way we're doing this, John.
Trying to remember back to how we did it in school board days. I think it's fine. We,
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further conversation, comment from members of council? Kevin, anything else you want to say?
No?
Okay. Andrew, you're okay?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Congratulations, that's a big moment we just hit. So Wednesday night, tomorrow morning, Carrie and I will recreate the agenda and re-warn it for Wednesday night to say that we will take action Wednesday night to approve all of the items that need to be warned for the March 3rd election day, the March 3rd town meeting day. Okay? Okay. So, John, do you want to say a word about convening as commissioners?
Yeah, my thought was that we should, or I'll make a motion that we, in our capacity as water and sewer commissioners, approve the budgets that have been proposed to us for.
All right, then let's do this. Let's make a motion to act as water and sewer commissioners.
Two motions, in other words.
Right, so
Okay, that's
we'll
fine.
move into being water and sewer commissioners, then we'll act to approve these two budgets, then we'll leave being a water and sewer commissioner and come back to the regular meeting. Is that all right?
So I move that the city council convene itself to act as water and sewer commissioners.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any further questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Aye.
Got it, thank you, Kevin. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. We are now acting as water and sewer commissioners, and John, I'd be willing to entertain another motion, or two, whatever you want.
I think we should move them separately.
Okay?
So I'll make a motion that the sewer fund expense budget for fiscal year 2027, or budget for fiscal year 2027 be approved as presented and reviewed tonight.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. You're on a roll, John. Keep moving.
Okay, so we did water, right?
Yes.
So I move that we adopt the sewer fund budget as presented tonight.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any further comment? All those in favor, besides those in the background on Kevin's house, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. I will accept a motion to How do I want to make that motion? Exit, to end our session as Water and Sewer Commissioners. Go ahead, Chip, you got something?
Just, you closed the meeting of the Water and Sewer Commissioners.
That's what I'm doing. Yep.
Okay,
I'll take a motion to close the meeting of the Water and Sewer Commissioners.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second. Any comment?
Oh, it's fun.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Kevin. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. We are back in our regular session. And moving on to item number 11. We've heard from Water and Sewer. Carter, is there anything else you need to report in on financial reporting and fiscal practices?
No, still working on the audit RFP.
You didn't
But-
do 10 yet.
I'll get back to it. I just
Oh,
noticed it
okay.
too. Thanks, Jim.
Oh,
Let's go ahead.
yeah. I'll know more details. We were hoping to polish that and get that posted by the end of the week. Or, no, excuse me. Polished and presented to be on the next regularly scheduled council meeting for council review and public feedback.
So we will need a session on Monday night, the 2nd,
Yes.
to talk about the RFP to look for potentially new auditors.
Yeah, to approve of the RFP.
Okay.
And just announce this.
Thank you. I didn't realize we did come back for that, so thanks. Okay, anything else?
That's practice. I don't know if it's nope. That's that. And then if you guys would like to come, the next FTF meeting is not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday on the 4th. Our normal 8 a.m. time, but it's probably going to be more like 8 a.m. to 9:30 because we're going to do a deep dive into the budget to actuals, like the current standing. How is the city looking? Are we going to be good as we enter into the end of the fiscal year? So if you want to be part of that, please join us online.
Thank you. Okay, Kevin, anything you want to report? I have a brief report on the Housing Insecurity Task Force. Okay, just like two things I want to just let folks know because the council members all know it. We made a decision on Thursday to open the senior center downstairs as a day shelter with the extreme cold on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The way that decision was made, just so that everyone knows, is that I wrote individually to each council member on Thursday and asked if they would approve such a decision. And each of them responded to me that they approved it. So that's how we covered ourselves to make a decision that felt pretty critical in the moment. There were people in the room who volunteered to make that happen, and I'm grateful. And there was some use. We had 3 or 4 people Friday night.
It was very successful.
Yeah, it was really helpful.
And it was really nice that everybody worked so well together.
Yeah, volunteers stepped up. It was staffed the entire time, but by I think 2 volunteers at a time, pretty much the whole time. And I also want to say a word of gratitude to Esther and the folks in the senior center because they gave up their space not only graciously but enthusiastically. They were so pleased.
They provided food.
Yeah, they provided food. I went down the stairs this morning to just ask if everything was cleaned up okay, and they couldn't stop saying how grateful they were that we had made the decision. So
People on the street, stores on the street like the Soul Cafe brought food to us.
yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, I was pretty afraid actually that the real impact of this was going to be that all of us who were volunteering were going to gain 10 pounds from
Well, it probably did.
all the food that was brought in. So that's one report. And the other is just to let you all know that we have been pressing so hard, and it looks like we have all 3 of our state inspections that we hope will be final inspections lined up for the temporary warming shelter to be done by the end of the week. Electrical on Wednesday, plumbing on Thursday, fire safety on Friday. If all of that happens and goes well, we will finish the final paperwork through the city on Friday, and depending on what we can do to get ready, the volunteers will try and get us open sometime this weekend. So stay tuned. If that doesn't happen, it's because one of the inspections hasn't gone well and we have to take a little more time.
Good luck.
Thank you. Andrew, anything from the fire department?
Yeah, so we are going to have our next meeting either the 3rd or 4th Thursday of February, so that'll be coming up. And then we're going to, there will be a presentation. We're looking at maybe the middle of March, the second meeting in March, or the first meeting in April to do a presentation to council with the findings of the numbers and the research that has been completed. And there will be a proposal that will be introduced at that time.
Great. Okay. Any questions? Okay, then let's double back to the one I missed, item 10. Y'all should have we presented this at the last meeting. You should have the copy of what we're planning for meeting dates this year in front of you. I'll just say, basically, it's first and third Mondays, with the exception of the months where the Monday falls on a holiday. And on those, we've tended, well, I won't guess at which we've done, but we've either pushed back or gone forward or something. So, any questions about that? This can change through the year. If we have to change it for some reason, we'll take action to change it. It just gives everybody an idea when we're heading.
That's nice.
Do I have a motion to approve the proposed dates for meetings in the year calendar year 2026?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
And a second from Carter. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Aye.
Thank you, Kevin. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Okay, item 12 is public comment. Who do we have signed up? And Scott, are you here to make public comment? I thought you might be.
Yes.
We'll give you a chance to do that.
You signed up.
Oh, he did sign up.
Yeah, I signed.
Great.
And
I think I'll pass tonight.
Thank you, Ian.
Scott.
Oh, sorry. I'll take this off so I can actually speak.
What's his last name?
Hammond. Hammond.
Scott Hammond.
One M?
2 M's.
2 M's. Okay.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Take your time.
So I wanted to present this resolution to the council that I submitted here. It's a nice resolution for Vermont town meetings. It's a resolution to condemn surveillance and enforcement practices of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. City of Williston enacted a similar resolution, and our governor has been in support of such. If any of you have been aware of any of the news that's been going on, there's been excuse me. There's been a stunning assault on our First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, 14th Amendment rights, and anyone who is interested in preserving the rights of any people within our municipality, our state, our country, anyone who has interest in preserving our rights should be concerned about this. And I'm bringing this before the council to review. I've got a copy of it here. I'll submit it after I'm finished speaking. I just wanted to highlight one little part here. Basically what this is doing is this is asking us to affirm the laws, to affirm our national constitution, state constitution. Says the town expresses its formal opposition to expanded all ICE activity within Vermont and requests that our elected federal and state officials take all necessary steps to protect the sovereignty of our state and the safety of all its residents. So that's my main concern, is that we keep our residents, all people within our municipality safe, and by reaffirming our constitutional rights and knowing that we have the support of our municipal leaders on this is very important. We've seen a great lack of leadership on this on a national and just a stunning lack of leadership in preserving our rights. And so I'm asking my council, my mayor, to take this under consideration and to help support the rights of all people who live here, who live in Newport, who live here in the state of Vermont. So I'll just submit this here for you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Council members, this is not the only person who's raised this concern or question. And I think we need to stay focused this month on trying to get to where we need to be by January 30th. But I think we can come back and have a conversation about this together early in February. We'll look at that on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, are there other people signed up?
Yes.
Pam?
I am.
Go ahead.
And I also signed up for the resolution. I'm one of the people who sent you a copy of it. Other towns have signed it. It is really important. Legally, it probably does not have a whole lot of teeth, but emotionally, morally, it has enormous consequences for those of us who live here, particularly those of us who are on the endangered species list, and there's quite a lot of us.
Only engaged what?
And the endangered species
Oh, you mean
list.
people who are not native born to the US?
Correct.
Yeah.
And having a piece of paper that says you're a citizen doesn't mean diddly squat anymore, as we have been told. So it is really important that you look at it and hopefully sign it.
Thank you.
Endorse it for the city.
Thank you. And Scott, thanks for coming and hanging in here till the end. Pam has to stay because she got the camera, but
It's all right, happy to stay.
anybody else signed up to speak tonight?
No.
Okay.
Is there anybody on the line?
Yeah, good question. Anybody online who wanted to speak tonight? Okay. I'm just going to ask, instead of going through each one of you, council members, does anyone have new business to put on the table tonight?
I do. I would like to see in the annual town report a section of delinquent taxes. This in seeing other community in other towns do this, it was very. It helped regain, get taxes in because people didn't want to see their name publicized. And I think it would be great for the city to put that, out there so that we could, receive some funding for taxes that may be running into the delinquency bucket.
Okay with you if we just put a question to our attorneys about any concerns they would have and then bring it back at February 2nd?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can I make a comment on that?
Please.
We used to do that. We stopped that because you put one person in, no matter how much they owe, $1,000 or 10 cents, the name's going in the book.
Thank you. That's helpful
That's why
enough.
we stopped doing that.
So we'll have more conversation. We're not going to do it tonight. Okay? We wouldn't take action on this without bringing
Well,
it
we
back.
did do that.
Thank you. It's good to know. Okay. Any other new business? Jim, anything you want?
No.
Okay. Old business, Kevin, anything you got on your mind?
I was wondering about was it a resolution that we signed about the bike path and the snowmobiles? And I was curious what has
Can you
happened.
please speak up?
Sorry, I'm kind of thinking, I'm trying to remember what it was called, but the bike path resolution.
About snowmobile use?
With limiting motorized vehicles, and I was skiing this weekend and came across them, and so I was just curious if Derby, I know you were I'm trying to communicate with them, I don't know where they're at, and I don't know if ultimately the state has come to some sort of decision, so I was just wondering if there's any sort of update that you know of.
Go ahead. I think I have an idea of this, but you may know more about it than I do, Pam.
I'm involved in this. It is controlled by V-Trans.
Understood.
There certainly are those who are supporting the movement to stop motorized vehicles on that path because it's obviously unsafe. The BB spur is at least a foot more narrow than the other rail trails, which means that there's no way to safely pass. So if a skier...
Yeah, we got that.
Yeah,
Oh, you got that?
We've all acted unanimously
It
in
is in
agreement.
process.
Okay.
Derby agreed to it. Newport agreed to it. I think.
Yeah.
Unanimously.
Yeah.
The question Carter's asking is, where does it stand, having taken that action?
They're negotiating.
Okay,
And what
so
that means is Woody and other representatives are talking to each other.
it looks as if the only fix to this would likely have to be a legislative answer at the state level.
It is.
And there's conversation going on now about whether or not such a move could be made. So the folks who are most invested in it are working on that.
There is high level support.
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other old business? Jim, anything from you? Somebody online?
Lori's got a question. Yeah.
Lori, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just realized that today is January 26th, and it was the due date for filing for running for council. Can Jim share with us if there's anyone running?
Is today the date, the final day?
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
Yeah, great. What's the news?
Yeah, there are 2 people running, John's one and Sharon Perry's the other one.
2 candidates, Sharon Perry and John Manette. Okay,
Okay, great, thank you.
thank you. I'll just say out loud what's been implied in that, Kevin, which is that we're going to be thanking you for your remarkable service. So stay tuned. We'll find a way to appreciate Kevin's service as he steps back, and appreciation to both John and Sharon Perry for stepping forward. Okay. Next meeting of council. We are about to finish this marathon, y'all. So we will have a meeting on Wednesday night, the 28th at 6 p.m. for two primary actions. One is to have a working meeting to perfect and then take action on the possibility of moving the charter forward to the voters. And then a final meeting or final action that night will be to approve all of the items for the agenda on the ballot on March 3rd. So that will be on Wednesday night. Then we have a regular meeting scheduled for February 2nd. And I'll just warn you that I've been putting off a lot of things and people who need to come talk to us about a variety of different things. So that meeting will be relatively full, but mostly listening for all of us and kind of hearing what reports are being made and that kind of stuff. So stay tuned. We'll be putting that agenda together this week and hopefully warning it by Thursday so that Carrie can take Friday off after all the extra hours she's been putting in. Do I have a motion to approve the next two meetings of council as stated in the agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion, a second.
Second.
And a second from John. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I waited for you this time. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Kevin, you get to make the big motion of the night.
Make a motion to adjourn.
There we go. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed,
Aye.
nay? Motion carries. Thank you all.